G'day, doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's a late night review. Just going to get a quick one in, guys. I've been wanting to do this all day, but been very preoccupied. Not expecting to get too many of you here tonight, being quite late. But anyone who wants to join and say hello and throw in a few comments, please do. And as usual, this will be available to listen to for all the people who consistently tell me that they enjoy listening and being a part of our little community. So look, I've been very active today, writing articles, answering a lot of fans who are in a bit of despair, got some pessimistic views, feeling like the season might be slipping away, who are stressed after that loss on Friday, who had a shit weekend because of that loss to the Broncos, and I don't blame them. Look, all these narratives around at the moment, guys, I understand why people would say them and why they feel that way. I understand why the media would also do it as well. But the questions I've been raising through the Media Watch part of what I do is, why has Braithen Asser done 40 articles or segments on TV, radio, and podcasts all about Galvin and the disruption to the Bulldogs? And look, it's in plain sight for all to see if you actually were to look. He's got more than one agenda, but look, it'll come out and I'll talk about it then, and it'll, if he keeps going, it'll be made a real big deal of, and there's a few journalists already aware of it, which I've checked out. But let's talk about the review of the Broncos. We're going to quickly look through the stats. I'm just going to give you some of the facts around this game. I know there was a young kid out there who made some errors, and I know that there was a number of changes which I flagged and talked about. We pretty much got the majority of those changes right. It was just the wrong player. But, and I'll explain why all that was done. I've been in contact with the club, more so from a fan's perspective on what the fans are saying, how the fans are feeling, the fans that I disagree with, but I feel sorry for how people are feeling, right? Some of the fans are fair weather fans, yes, but there are fans that love the Bulldogs as much as I do, who feel like the season is dissipating based on this narrative. And some of them believe this narrative, and it doesn't matter what the media say, they think this narrative is the narrative that our season has been disrupted. And I'm telling you, for the most part, that is not the truth, okay? And I'll explain why. But g'day, Timmy. Welcome, Sam. Marnie is a big loss, but we can talk about that again, because we already talked. See, Marnie leaving us was always happening all season. It was just a matter of giving him the permission to get the release he was after, okay? Because we weren't ready to decide if he could be extended further. And his manager, being one of Gus's best friends, and Gus doesn't have too many, would have known that writing was on the wall, that there would have been a chance that Marnie needs to sort of, with the expansion and everything coming, he needs to sort his future now. That opportunity at the Cowboys is huge to get more money, which he's done, to get that security for him and his family, to be back in a place where he's probably enjoys more in Queensland. You know, he's from the Sunshine Coast, which is pretty close to the city and that, but it's the beach, it's all of that, and it's Queensland. He's very much a Queenslander. It's going to suit him very, very well. But don't get me wrong, he's put his body on the line for this club, and I love Reid Marnie. And while he's probably going to frustrate me at the Cowboys, I'm always going to, just like Michael Ennis, I'm always going to value him and his contribution. And I did an article on Reid Marnie, which was well received, that he was the kid, he was the guy who come when not many other people would. and he was the one who's put his body on the line and copped a lot of shit to help our club get to where we are right now. Okay? He deserves nothing but respect. Braith is just being Braith. Yeah, there's a lot more to it, brother. And I, you know, it's right there for everyone to see. You know, Danny Weirdler went out and really pissed Braith off with his conflict of interest story, which they felt was calling the kettle black. And if you take that story on and you actually look at who he's employed, who he looks after, and where those people play and when they used to play, and we look at people talk about juniors having their pathways blocked by people that you buy, you can start to see that there's fair questions to be asked why someone would put out over 40 segments of audio to be heard and seen, which is then being tagged on and creating literally hundreds of headlines on different social media sites, presenting this distraction narrative. And this goes with all the stuff on Isaac Moses, with all the stuff all the subjective stuff about Galvin. Look, I have no doubt that he's a 19-year-old and he's not going to be perfect. And I'm sure, just like any other 19-year-old, may not handle or have the emotional intelligence of some other 19-year-olds when it comes to dealing with how they feel when they're not happy. Look, these things are all normal and part of all clubs. It's just that the ones in the spotlight getting the money, that seems to mean that they're allowed to cop all the shit and the punishment. And we need to be careful. We really do. G'day, Ron B. Welcome for coming. G'day, Tommy. How are you, brother? We are on track. We certainly are on, and that's exactly what I want to talk about. We all knew Marnie was leaving end of last year. Good on him. All good. Hayward, great replacement. G'day, Marty. I like Braith, but he has an agenda on the Bulldogs and Buzz. Don't get me started on him. He should be focusing on the Sharks. Very much so. Look, they've got an agenda to get clicks and views, and even Channel 9 and Fairfax are going to, they literally, because of the momentum and constant pushing of this disruptive narrative of accommodating Galvin, which is a word that is not true. People are making up their own mind with this. They're saying, oh, it's in his contract that he has to play first grade and all this sort of shit, which is a load of shit. Do you think Gus would let anyone do that? Of course not. All this stuff, creating cliches to say the Galvin effect. Oh, the Galvin effect. Even fuckwit fans today saying that West won because Galvin's not in their side today. Well, what about the previous 6 games they lost? He hasn't been there for a month and hasn't played for them for 5 or 6 weeks. Like, how fucking stupid are people in trying to be entertaining online? G'day, Ron. So proud of the women. Let's not forget their efforts. Yeah, well, I've got their picture there on me thing there. So we will talk about Andy Robinson and Taylor Preston and getting to know all their names. I'm not going to pretend I'm across all of them, but there's a lot of players in that side that are unknown, and some of them had played at women's NRL but couldn't make the grade in the last couple of years. Like, some of them were injured, others just couldn't get a go at the teams they were at, and they all contributed. I'm not expecting them to win the comp, but they started real slow. In fact, I was like, their line speed's horrible. They look like they're completely off the pace from the start, but they just kept going and working into it, and eventually they played like Bulldogs. It was amazing. It reminded me of the Cronulla game this year, where Cronulla come out and just looked way on top of us in the first 5-10 minutes. But when they couldn't score, although the Knights scored against us first, that the English girl who played against Australia in Vegas last year, she scored first with a good run, and that was just due to fatigue. We couldn't get back in the line, but yeah, we've got some really good players in our side, and Prestomania is just everywhere. It's in both teams now. They're not related, by the way, just in case anyone wanted to ask. G'day, Abraha. I'm upset that Gus sacrificed almost guaranteed minor premiership just for Lachlan Galvin to gain some finals experience. Galvin still needs 2 more years. Yeah, well, Abraha, I completely disagree. And this is exactly the sort of rhetoric which is destabilising more so than anything. The fact of the matter is that you and nearly every single person, and sorry if I'm wrong about saying this to you, brother, and I appreciate and respect your opinion, whether I disagree with it or not, okay? I value you, okay? But I want you to know, deep from my heart, I speak more in facts than feelings, okay? I'm not on some pedestal. I make inquiries. I do my research. Sometimes I get it wrong, and that's okay. But for the most part, I'm getting it right. I come here last week and I told everyone there's a likelihood there's going to be changes to that side. And I did previews and I said that there was a big chance Burton was going to play in the centres. People are like, nah, Burton's not a centre. He can't play centre. And even afterwards, he failed at centre. Well, it's a very subjective opinion. I've been defending Burton as our number 1 5'8" for a long time, and he still is. And he will be our 5'8". But I'll say to you, Abraha, what if Burton or Sexton get injured? And it's the second week of the finals, first week of the finals, whatever it is. Maybe it's a prelim. Maybe we get there, right? What if Burton or Sexton are injured and are out of that game? Who's going to come in? It's not going to be Mitch Woods. It's going to be Lachlan Galvin. And Lachlan Galvin, would you think that getting those lessons against Penrith in one of the biggest games of the year, where I stated that I felt we pulled the trigger too early bringing him on, do you think it's great experience at this time of the year? We're not talking about the last 2 rounds of the season where everyone was saying our wheels fell off and then we went out and outplayed the Manly Sea Eagles and still lost somehow. The team with the least amount of games together in the competition, the least amount of finals experience in the competition, playing against seasoned Origin players and internationals. And we were the better side. They threw a forward pass, it wasn't given. And, they got us with one real big play at the end. We should have been in the second week of the finals, and who knows what could have happened. We don't win the comp, though, that year. Maybe we do. We'll never know. But my point is how can you sit there and say that we've given up a certain minor premiership? Who have we beaten? Every win has come through hard work and effort and determination. And I've seen that hard work, effort and determination get us to leads in the last 4 matches. Okay? That same system. Forget Galvin's there, right? We're sitting there. We've got a lead against Parramatta. They're absolutely dead on their feet. They're about to crack. He brings on Galvin. He takes off Marnie, who already made a massive amount of tackles and worked his ass off and played well. Marnie's played better since Galvin's arrived, and so has Toby. Okay? So we go out there and Galvin's just on both sides of the field, a bundle of energy, involved in everything. He wasn't the reason we won. The game was set up for Galvin, and the guys went out there and nailed it. The next game against South, Origin affected. Him and Toby go out there and put on a masterclass. Galvin's in everything. He's running the ball out of the back end to help out. He's both sides of the ruck. He's getting across from one side to the other easily. And we're 28-0 in 28 minutes or something. Then lightning strikes. And South start to believe by the end of it, and they get close to us when they shouldn't have got nowhere near us. But we took a bit of the foot off the pedal. We started to be undisciplined. they got penalties and they got piggybacks and they took their advantage. And then we come to the Penrith game. We're ahead 6-2. We lost Daniel Salukafafita in the first minute of the game. It affected our energy. I felt the coach pulled the trigger too early, but he saw what he saw, and he thought that Penrith were about to crack. And the team changed its mindset, and we lost. But we were still having a crack right at the end. It took us 15 minutes to gain the ground back that we'd lost through by stopping what we were doing, which was all that defensive work, keeping them in the grind and taking really good care of our structures. We let that go because I honestly believe the team embrace Galvin, and they do. I know that for a fact. They think he is adding. They can see the talent in front of him, how he's able to add to them with what he does. And their mindset changed. And Cameron Serrato nailed it in one sentence. And I said this before he was even saying it, and I'm sure other people saw it as well. We didn't learn our lesson from the previous week after setting that game up again against a Broncos team that were tackling in a way that was restricting our meters more than teams had done in a long time. And, of course, some of those changes caused us to be a little bit clunkier and be a little bit more disorganised at times, which it definitely was. Look, even the try we got through Montoya throwing it over his head, like that was nearly from a shit show. I was looking at a try today, a replay, which is a similar thing where Ben Barber scored off a kick, the one where he got it where it just went in. We had a small lead, but our fifth tackle option was horrible, and we were just able to keep shifting the ball and competing, and we scored. Now Burton chases that kick, and we score for his chip that he put through. But the point I'm making is I was feeling like we were throwing that game away at about the 25-minute mark. Jake Turpin was sensational in the first 25 minutes. He went off after 30. He was gassed. I think he could have come on again late, but I know that coach, and this is going back to you, Abraham, he's left Bailey Hayward on there because he knows Bailey's going to be playing longer and longer and longer minutes. And if Marnie goes down injured, he hasn't been injured in 64 games for us, except for, copping a bumper to the face from Tino. That's been it. He's had a couple of injuries, but he's played through it. He's played every game for us. He is sensational. But if he goes down, we need Marnie. We need Hayward. And this is all about having us able to compete at the business end, knowing that you got to plan. Because if you don't plan and have foresight to beat these sides like Penrith, who have generational spine players that many think some of those players are going to be called immortals. We don't have that yet. We might have it in our juniors. And who knows, Galvin might turn into that. Gus thinks he will. You got Brave saying, I don't see it. And then a couple of others go, no, I don't see it. Of course he's going to say he doesn't see it. He might think one of his younger clients is one of those players. And he's probably not wrong. We've got a couple of really talented halves coming through. And Galvin coming in is more likely to disrupt them than it is anyone in the top 30, if that makes sense. It's right there in front of you for you all to see the conflict of interest in what he's doing. If he just did it a normal amount of times, I'd have no issue. But he just is relentless with it, obsessed with it, and will not let it go and keeps pushing it. And you know what? I'm going to be just as obsessed in my rebuttals on it, as should our fan base. Rather than joining in and piling on a fucking 19-year-old, Braith himself, and he said it the other night, and all credit to him, lost his dad to suicide, and he is a massive advocate for mental health. And then at the same time, him and his mates at fucking Fox, like Buzz, are putting out polls for people to rate the performance of Galvin. Bullying. Setting an agenda which allows the fans to say and do what they want. And fans can do that. But when we lose a kid one day, I hope people understand what they're doing. Our club's bigger than any player, and I get that. And look, sometimes silence to this shit is the best type of rebuttal, and I get that as well. But we need to think a little bit how we can, as I said, try and understand why the coach is doing it. For you to assume that we were going to be the minor premiers, and by putting Galvin into our side and making these changes has derailed that. It might turn out that that's going to happen. But if we can't win these games, that's not on Galvin that's on the whole team. The whole team let that slip the other night. And while there was plenty of done players, Gould confirmed today that Jack Todd isn't injured. He just needed important minutes. And he was gassed after 3 tackles and 1 hit up. And then his second hit up, he drops the ball. All right. And then he sort of got up and he was like holding his arm and whatever else. He probably felt embarrassed, like he just let the team down. But we took that risk. They could have picked Wilson as the safe option. But they know Wilson's fit and they know Wilson is a really good viable option for us if someone goes down. And he had a pretty good game at fullback, couple of moments under the high ball which were questionable, but he played really well in our loss to Newcastle. And both our wingers look sensational. Like they're preparing for what's coming. We're preparing for the finals, guys. And if we can't jag, 4 or 5 wins on the way home and get that top 4 spot, we don't deserve to be there. And as Jimmy Graham said, no one expected us to be top 4. Only a very few overly patriotic or very smart people thought we were going to be top 4 this year and a chance to win the comp. And everyone, including Braithen Astor, including Buzz Rothfield and more, all said that Toby Sexton and Reid Marnie in our spine, and Connor Tracy, they said as well, thank you very much, aren't up to that level to take us to a preliminary, let alone a grand final. They all said it. Buzz, at the start of the last 2 seasons, has said that Reid Marnie is our problem, and he's doubled down on it numerous times. But now it's poor Marnie, poor fucking Toby. But no one gave a shit about Jamal Fogarty when the Raiders have been top 2 for the majority of the season. What, he's only getting $600,000 to go to Manly. You'd think they would want to keep him. But what's the narrative around Jamal Fogarty? Oh, him and Ricky have a beautiful relationship. But Toby, oh, poor Toby. Unlike other clubs, the Bulldogs don't really enjoy the constant, releasing of information regarding contract negotiations. And player managers that engage in that behaviour generally aren't as respected. It's done professionally and privately and with good reason. And it makes the Bulldogs more entrenched in the recruitment wars because it gives us power. And that's a good thing. Being linked to all the clubs is not a bad thing. It's laughable for the media and for our club. And when we need the media, sure, they'll release something. But it's on the Bulldogs' terms. But the media want to drive narratives on their terms because they want to influence what we see and what we think. And when it comes to this Broncos game, we played poorly. And the stats reflect that. 57% possession in the second half. Yes, and Galvin threw some passes that Birdo had little chance of catching. But if Birdo's throwing those passes to Montoya, who do you think's getting the blame there? I can guarantee you it's not Burton either. And I'm not saying he's protected, because there's people that have been very critical of Matt Burton. But what we see is a reflection of our biases and predetermined biases, and it's actually quite human. And anyone who's done psychology understands it. So I'm not critical of people with what they see, because I'm exactly the same. I'm sitting there screaming myself, how the fuck did you do that? Now let's talk about our right edge, Cherry and Montoya, who have been our left edge all season. Why were they swapped and changed? Well, Burton's a left centre because he's just much better on that side. He still did the most number of kicks for our team in the game with 5. Sometimes it got messed up because of the different roles that they were playing. Initially, they were going to name Galvin in the centres and just have Matty defend there, and then do what they did with Blake Taff against the Dolphins and just swap it around occasionally. But Matty said, no, I'll just play centre and let Galvin get the experience. And the conversation's more than what Serrato said. The conversation was, well, if I get injured or suspended, or if something goes wrong, this is only going to benefit all of us. Like, what a fucking true statement, and what a leader. Instead of people sitting there saying, oh, you're an F-wit if you think that he should have played centre. No, I predicted he would play centre. I don't know if I would have made that call, but I support what the club does and why it does it. The rationale of this is to get minutes into players so we have depth for when we need it. And getting those pressure moments into a kid who's 19, who's come to the club, and they've assessed him and think that he is good enough to play NRL, right? And I have no doubt once we start our focus and our push in the final 8 weeks, that he may find himself, playing 19th man, potentially a bench spot in some games, and maybe playing a couple of games with Mitch Woods in New South Wales Cup, and whatever else. But if Toby's playing too good to be dropped, and he was never going to be dropped. Braith come out and said, and I think he named our chairman as the one who told him, which is an absolute lie. Right? It's an absolute lie. And he can say it. Say it all he wants. You're only sharing that information if the club wants you to share it, or you're telling bullshit, or you're throwing people under the bus. It's one of those. And for him to say that Toby was going to be dropped for Haywood, maybe it was deliberate to put a rocket up Toby, and he's trained too well and shown so much determination that they can't drop him. Now, people were critical of his defence late in the game. They had all the momentum. We lost the possession turn. They were tired. We only used 5 interchanges, which was interesting. But you could see Jack Todd was a passenger after a few tackles. He needed that little gut buster. It'll do him the world of good. He'll get more minutes next time. It'll help him. Probably go back to Cup now, have a bit of a run, get some more minutes, and they'll progress him through. Sam Hughes got to play 25 straight. Our possession helped him stay on the field, which was good. And then Hughes was able to come on late because we had to put someone on there because there's players that were just absolutely buggered. And it's a core stadium. It's always prone to lots of mistakes at night. Always. I felt there were a couple of referee decisions too, which were very influential in their momentum. But I bring it back to all the mistakes we made. That's what you get. That's what you get. That's what you get. So that's what happens. You lose momentum. You don't get the 50-50 calls, and our coach knows it. So look, guys, Gus hasn't sacrificed anything. They've got the foresight to do what they've got to do. Reed Marnie and Toby Sexton have been on the market all season, and there's no one to feel sorry for. And just remember, Braith and Astor said that Toby Sexton wasn't going to take us to a premiership, just like he said Fogarty wasn't going to do that for Canberra. Both teams are on top of the ladder this year. And both clubs have looked past those players. So maybe he's right in one point. But it's quite funny how there's no narrative about Canberra getting rid of the halfback that's taken them to the promise to what's looking like a minor premiership because of their draw and how well they've done. Look, they have been the best team all season in spite of conceding a lot of points. But everyone knows the area you need to be best in when it comes to an NRL grand final or a semi-final systems is defence. And Penrith, on their 4-year winning streak, they won some games where they were under the hammer, where they weren't actually the best side in those games where they just won by a couple of points to get into those grand finals, to get into those prelims. But it's because of their defence that they got there, right? And that's what our club's focused on. So when we grind, when we play patient, when we set the game up, we fucking win. If we keep doing what we're doing and wait for them to crack. And there's plenty of examples of that over the last 2 years, actually, but especially this year against Newcastle, against Souths earlier in the year, holding them to 0. But really taking our time to get those leads up. Then there's been other games where we've put scoreboard pressure on early and then had some things go wrong and got a bit cocky and teams have come back at us a little bit and we've had to win it again. Nothing's come easy for us. So to say that we're going to be minor premiers is a bit of a far call. I totally get that it'd be much more advantageous to finish top 2. And that's still definitely in the picture. But top 4 is the goal. If they get to top 4, they're not afraid to have to travel anywhere. Okay? They know they can compete with all these sides. And when we've got our best side on the paddock, that's exactly what's going to happen in the run home to the finals. And if things do go wrong, which they always fucking do, we've got some young talent there that's got some valuable experience. We've given Anari Tuala some good experience. We've given players a chance to play both sides of the field. And Bronson Cherry played plenty of right centre at Cronulla. And he's also played a fair bit of it before getting his chance from New South Wales Cup into first grade. I actually thought he was coming in as a right centre, but he came in as a left, which was interesting. And he actually prefers the left, apparently. But I reckon he does a really good job on the right. But when you lose the middle and they get that flow on, that momentum, a defensive line with that sort of lack of cohesion, which that's what you get when you make changes like that. But you can't tell me that if they put an Ari Tuala in the centres, left Burton at 5'8", for example, put Wilson on the wing, you can't tell me that we would have defended better in that moment. Because I know we wouldn't have. And I know that our right edge has conceded the most amount of tries all year with and without Stephen Crichton in the side. I've also said Toby Sexton's defence is so good. That's his one-on-one defence, and people, hitting those big boys that have targeted him 100%, but misreads and stuff like that. They've all had their moments from Preston all the way out, and whoever's played that role all the way out to the winger. It's a team thing. But everyone wanted to blame all these certain players and try to learn. And the main thing is, why do they keep picking a player that everyone in the fan base thinks should be outed? Ask yourself why. It's never because of contractual agreements or boys clubs or anything like that. Because if it is, your team isn't winning the amount of games we've won. I can tell you that now. Not in today's world. So let's knock a lot of these narratives on the head and understand that it's foresight to be and it's cockiness. It's a bit of cockiness, bit of arrogance, but it's a hell of a lot of faith and a hell of a lot of belief in the players in our side that they can go out there against the Broncos, who are stacked with so much young talent that's been in that system waiting for an opportunity for so long, right? That's had so many reps as well through training and whatever else, played Queensland Cup, numerous games of Queensland Cup together, some of those players. And I'm telling you, the likes of Willison and Piakura, absolute superstars. And our club desperately wanted Brendan Piakura, and he actually agreed to terms and backed out before the 10-day cooling off period. When Dean Pay was at the club, when he was a kid. He'll play Origin, and he'll cause problems for New South Wales. Trust me. Sam, you can't compare Hayward to Marnie. Sorry, brother, Hayward is good off the bench. Sam, Hayward's definitely not at Marnie's level, but Hayward is going to develop. Okay? I think Jake Turpin, many people will dismiss this. I've been watching Jake for years. His body holding up, his injuries are the big issue. But Connor Watson's had plenty of injuries, and he's now playing New South Wales Origin. You know, Jake Turpin is a really capable defender. Yes, he had some issues in that first up performance that he had off the bench, but someone who's cheap, who puts his body on in front of, meets them at the contact, chops them under their legs, brings them straight down. He is someone that is cheap and would be good for our depth, whilst they also develop some of these younger kids that they've got a big rap on, like your Ruben Moyles and your Taniela Otokolos and, and a bunch of others coming through. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tommy. Much appreciated, my friend. G'day, Michael. I hope I'm all right, brother. I hope you're all right, my friend. Exactly. He needs a preseason. In that preseason, hopefully he gains about another 5 or 6 kilos, and then he hopefully gain another 5 kilos the following one. They've got a big job to get the weight on him. But as you know, you put weight on someone, it can affect them in other areas. It's going to be a gradual thing, and it's going to be all about what his body type needs. But of course, after a preseason, he's going to be better. But if they've got someone there that's talented enough to influence the scoreboard, which he's done, and you just got to look at his assists. You just got to look at some of those influence parts he's had in his game with getting things happening on the scoreboard. I know he's definitely shown a bit of immaturity in some of the things that he's done, and been a bit rushed and been a little bit, Harlem Globetrotter sort of stuff at the wrong time, of course. But that's what he's there to learn. And you only learn it by experiencing the consequences of your actions. And someone was saying he was throwing his arms up and being angry at Burton. That's all right. Burton will put him in his fucking place. Trust me. Burton couldn't give 2 fucks. He's laid back as to the hills. He's from Dubbo, mate. You got to understand what we're like. Us bush pigs. G'day, mate. I rewatched the second half, and it's definitely not Galvin's fault we lost, but we really need to fix that. We definitely do. We need to fix our mindset change that when we think we've established dominance and field position and all that sort of stuff, that it's all just going to happen. And when Galvin comes on or at that part of the game, it's all going to take care of itself. Like, we'd set that up perfectly in the first 25. Our bench looked great on paper, but it had no impact whatsoever. None. And it was all due to errors and poor options. A bit of disorganisation. And obviously some of the selections, and let's get this right, those selections weren't made at the last minute, those changes. They were planning for those changes before they played the previous game. They were planning for what they were going to do with Origin players. Now, that weren't sure if Carraz was going to get selected or not. They were expecting Burton wasn't going to be in the side. So they were planning a lot of stuff. And that's why they swapped Carraz and Montoya around. There was all reasons for that. I thought Tamala, I've seen him play on the right edge before, but he's also played a lot of left. And they've been playing him on the left. So they've had to give him a debut. They had to get him some fitness. And he got a great and I felt he got better as the game went on, as far as his run into the contact and all that sort of stuff. In the beginning, it was not scoring in the first half. Now it's the second half. Well, we'll get it right. The last part of the season, the last 2 months of the season, we're gonna build and get it right. Cowboys is going to be another big target, big job. And I've got a feeling they'll put a lot of faith in a lot of those guys that played on the weekend to turn it around and learn their lessons, and maybe give a couple of those Origin players a break rather than risk injury, or just knowing how long this season's going to be on the run home. So I would definitely wait till we play a Dragons team in a couple of weeks to really see how we're shaping that 17 and how we're pushing into that final stretch. Because for me, I'm looking at Dragons, Wests, Warriors, and Manly as must-win games, where we need to win all those games. Going away to Melbourne, I'm looking at that game as all about the performance more so than the result. I'm looking at the Penrith game like that's one of the big tests, win or lose. It's all about how we play again. And the coaches and that aren't stupid. If they know that there's a weak spot in those big games that's going to be a huge risk, and they've got a more reliable option, they're going to go with that more reliable option. Trust me, it's semi-final football. And they know we've got game breakers in our team who can influence the scoreboard without Lachlan Galvin. But this is so important. And honestly, I would rather be bringing in a Lachlan Galvin than having to look to Mitch Woods or get Drew Hutchison even. Although I'm sure Drew would be able to do a role for us. And we've also got Bailey Hayward there as well. But you need that forward planning if Reid Marnie gets injured. Okay? We've got Turpin, he's getting some miles in his legs. Hopefully he can stay fit so that if we need him, he can come in. This is what it's all about, guys. It's all part of the fucking process. And what James Graham said, we are exceeding expectations on what most people thought. It's not to diminish our performance or to say that it was a fluke, because it wasn't. It was all earned off hard work and commitment and a really close-knit bond. But all these noise and distractions that they're saying about Lachlan Galvin's arrival were already there. And the only disruptions, I think, which is natural, are to the young juniors who may feel that they've got a pathway blocked. We're not able to play a full 80 minutes and our attack is definitely lacking. So our attack has a lot of improvement. We have a lot up our sleeve when it comes to our attack. And we don't need our attack to be immensely great to get to a prelim. And we've got 8 weeks to keep perfecting it. And it's going to be like 2 new seasons are starting, okay? So the season to get us to the finals, and then the finals is a new season, which we all know. We've seen it with our own team. Go in off a couple of losses and in bad form, get to the semi-finals and belt sides. It's last 2 games of last year. We basically, only made a couple of changes. Played Manly. We're way better than them. Lost. Okay, we lost. Heartbreaking. But these guys, man, Do you think that the coaches and that are doing this for ego? Because or for some contractual reason? They're doing this to make sure that we're going to be in the best possible position to win the finals and get there and win. And if we don't, we don't. If we're not good enough, we're not good enough. I've had lots of highs this season, and I reckon we're going to have a few more on the way home. But I always knew we were going to have disappointing performances. It's natural. And for anyone who bets on rugby league would know that through this origin period, some people have got 0 games correct. A lot more often than usual. It's been a nightmare for tipsters. It's been a nightmare. Who picked West today? Tell me that. Cowboys nearly beat the Storm. Dragons should have beat the Raiders. Like, we all act like we're this invincible side that was going to win the premiership. We don't all act that way, but that's what people are acting like. We were going to win the premiership. We're going to win the minor premiership. And then Galvin fucked it all up. Like, seriously. Yes, there's a bit of arrogance and ego, but a lot more faith and belief in our team from our coaching staff to take risks and to carry some underdone players into a game where 25,000 people turn up against a team we all hate and wanted to get revenge back and to feel great this weekend. And it was looking pretty good with the scoreboard, and then we got beaten, and it was fucking devastating. But that Broncos, you know what? They were hungry the whole time. They were hungrier than us and hungrier for longer. And their defensive work was better than ours. They prepared for Josh Curran. They were meeting him. He was doing his skip, and they were meeting him before he got that last jig in to get to position of the field he wanted to go. And then turning him upside down and putting him into vulnerable positions where he knocked on. And that's something he'll have to look at. They were prepared, the way they ran the ball, to stop us, to mitigate the amounts of times we could drive them back as a unit. Now, I know it helps when you've got Critter out there on the edge doing it, and you've got King in the middle doing it, and you've got Salmon playing and all these other players and Kurt Mann. You know, I know it works better with all those players. Of course it does. But at the same time, I could see that the Broncos had done their homework, and it was a good coaching performance. But I still don't credit them with the win. I credit us with the loss. And I know that's why fans are disappointed and fans want to point the finger. And you can sort of point the finger because it could have been some other positional selections they chose, which would have given us more energy and potentially a more safer pathway to win in that match. And that can be said for the Penrith game as well. Even carrying Galvin, which I've argued with people who have said, no, you can't have 2 halves on the field. You can't do that. Well, we've done it and we won 2 games doing it. So we've lost 2. We've lost 1 doing it. Right? It was just the mindset, though, of why we didn't get it done. And everyone's saying Galvin's a lock anyway. So, look, I told people Turpin would likely come into the side, and he came into the side. That was the prediction. Why? Because it was his old team that he's playing against. Because he's a hard-assed little defender who tackles his ass off. Sure, he has some bad discipline the previous game, and he's had a few bad discipline games in his career. But he knew he had to go out there and earn his money that he's been paid by this club, and he did that. And he could be a very important player for us in the remaining weeks. But at the moment, he's just a backup, okay? He's not in our best 17. He's not in our best 19 or 20, okay? He's there as a backup if we need it. And that's why it's so great to get him a bit of an opportunity. And without him at the start of that game, we wouldn't have had any sort of lead. With the other options available in our team, I mean, based on origin and all that, there was no one else who was going to give us that thrust from that position, especially in defence. Michael, tough night, but we go again. I think putting on Galvin is a good idea for experience so he could get ready for finals. That's it, brother. Hayward is a good replacement if Burton or Sexton gets injured. We saw the combo against the Sharks. Hayward is a good replacement, but you've also got the situation where we could be missing Salmon again. He might get injured again. We could be missing Kurt Mann. You know, you've got to have planned to have all these players there ready to go. And I think it's very, very important to have this kid getting these lessons in case they are needed for now. But they're also going to carry into next year when he's likely to get the preseason and be competing with Mitchell Woods to start the year in the team. And who's to say Mitch can't have a good enough preseason to demand his place? And other players that might get elevated into that spot, like the Alex Contis and the Tiapas and whoever else. Serrato's proven he's going to pick players that he thinks are going to do the job and implement the plan and get it done. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't make mistakes. Of course he makes mistakes. Everybody does. But I look at a trend line, guys. Here's your little fucking narrative. Here's your little analogy. You're always going to get dips in your trend line. If you cash out every time you have a dip, you're never going to make money. You got to stay the course. You know your investment's good. You know your system's working. You know you're bringing in new ideas and stuff, and sometimes they just take a while to get hold, and then eventually you see that return continue to grow and grow. I should be a millionaire with that philosophy, but that's how they do it, and that's how that's what this is. I said it about the Broncos. Their trend line from where they were from 2020 to 2024 at the end of last year was still way up on where they were, but they sacked their coach. And the coach who took over only did it because he knew he had a roster and he had a fucking pathway system and the amount and abundance of talent at his disposal that if he can't make that work, he's never going to make it work. Right? So we'll get to learn how good Madge Maguire is. And Kevin Walters, yeah, sure. Maybe he wouldn't have got him a premiership. But he basically did. All but a premiership. One of the best seasons of any club. I compare Broncos season of 2023 to the Bulldogs of 2012. But they went closer to winning the grand final than we did. Very exciting season for Broncos fans that year. Every Doggies fan I know and see are blaming Galvin. Well, Michael, you tell them where to fucking go. Okay? Or just say nothing. Say, yeah, blame a 19-year-old. And see, this is what the media has no responsibility for, Michael. They have no responsibility to the millions of comments that have come out, literally dragging this kid through the mud. Based on a bunch of narratives before he left. And I'll tell you now, Richardson at the West Tigers didn't have $1.2 million a season in their salary cap or next year's projections to even fit him in at that price. They did what was right for their club, knowing that kid was never going to stay. Richo said that Galvin in that squad had the best spine in the comp because of Galvin and Buller with Lullaby and Appy. The best spine in the comp. Dogs pay about $700 for him. I still think that's overs, but what they did was make it completely untenable for Galvin to go anywhere with the way that they talked about him and the media assistance they got. And the only one who sort of stood up for Galvin as such has been Brent Reid, who has a good relationship with Isaac Moses. And Brent Reid, I've had issues with him in the past in like what he said. But people don't know who Isaac Moses is. Okay? And there's plenty of people who do. And these reporters think they know. And I can tell you, it's more than just a one-man operation. There's a whole bunch of people who work in these companies who go nameless. I'll just say that. Didn't fail as a centre, just copped a few hospital passes, but we would have won the game with him in the halves, play Galvin 14. I don't know if that's true at all. We don't know. Because it wasn't just those hospital passes or no-look passes that went to ground that were the issue. There was so many poor plays by multiple players in the team. So many poor defensive plays in the middle. So many missed tackles on the first contact that we haven't been missing because the Brisbane bigs were just too classy. And people saying, oh, they had a hooker as their prop. Tyson Smoothie played lock. Kobe Havrington played prop. It's pretty easy to work that out, but how stupid are people? They see the numbers and they see what's named and they think that's the position they're playing. They don't watch the game and actually get and understand the roles that these people are playing. You know, it's people saying, oh, Turpin and Bailey Hayward don't do any runs. But Kurtman does. Well, Bailey had about 7 runs and did all right in the second half where we had 57% possession. Not possession, 57% completion, I should say. No possession. Fuck all possession. Still won the possession overall, but our completions were horrible. And Bailey didn't have many opportunities to run. He tackled his ass off and he tackled himself to a standstill, and Turpin did the same as the 13. Our locks haven't been hard-running locks that also tackle just as hard. They're ball players. Okay? Should have used Wilson even though I don't rate him. No, they shouldn't have used Wilson, mate. Sorry, brother. I appreciate you being here. Appreciate your opinion. They brought in an Ari Tuala to give him important minutes as part of our top 30 squad. We know what we get from Wilson, and I rate him. He's an awesome talent who'd be playing first grade in some clubs, for sure. He's young. People blame his defence. He's had some defensive issues like any winger. Dropped a few balls, had mistakes like any winger. And he was definitely a safer. You're not wrong. We're probably in a more stable position with Wilson in the side. Okay, I'll agree with you. But you missed the point. Our club has foresight to prepare our squad for the business end of the season. And they know what they've got under their bonnet. And they're confident that what they've got is going to, win the big race when the big race is on. And if they don't, they get it wrong. They learn from it. They have another preseason. They bring in some new players, let some players go, and we start again. We see what draw we get, and we deal with it week by week, and hopefully be in a position where we can prepare for our finals. And look, once you build a squad and have enough talent and have enough depth and have enough of those generational talents coming through your system, which is what they're trying to do in the key areas like the spine, then it's a little bit different. You don't have to take as many risks. But look at all the players the Panthers have used over the time and won those games. All right? Now lose those games. Maybe they get questioned. Why did you put that player in instead of that one? Not his fault, but he threw some shockers. He sure did. And that's fine. He can be criticised for that. He'll criticise himself for that. If he doesn't, there's something wrong. And the players will be like we've got to work on that. What went wrong there? They're going to look at that in the video. What were the questions that were asked were right, but the option was wrong. And the execution was poor. And in some ways immature. But that's part of the development. And he's getting that in real time in NRL. There's most of the kids he was playing with and won a Harold Matts title with are still in Jersey Flegg, for fuck's sake. Now, if Gus Gould's saying this kid can play first grade and he thinks he's a once-in-a-generational talent, I'd severely question anyone who's sitting there saying, I don't see it. Go back and watch Isaiah Katoa in his first season at the Dolphins and tell me how involved he was in every game. He's been given time. He's been managed to the minute, and he's now one of the best halves in the comp. Galvin was just trying too hard. He needs to relax with some plays. We should have came out and just play a grinded second half. 100% agree there. We should have did that. If we do that for 5 more sets against the Panthers, I have no doubt we break them down and score another try or two. No doubt about it. But we didn't. And in that game, we stopped grinding a long way before the finish line and then took the 2 to go 18-0 in front and told the Broncos, we're here, come get us. And then we couldn't manage to grind it out. We go set for the next 10, 15 minutes and show them we're happy to do that. Broncos have shown that they can't handle that type of footy, which is why they should not get too much excitement out of that game. But they are a different football team to us. They use a more traditional style as far as the way their halves play, the way their forwards play, and the way their backs play. Far more traditional style. And it's hard to be traditional in today's game, especially when a team like the Bulldogs have come out and a coach like Serrato has changed the narrative completely on how it should be done. And it all comes down to Gus Gould and his philosophies and coaching techniques on having teams that if you can compete for 80 minutes, you can win any game. And if you believe you can compete for 80 minutes and believe you can win any game, you're going to win a lot more games than you're going to lose. And it's a pretty simple philosophy based on a heap of muscle memory techniques and an absolute commitment to doing the little things right. And Cameron Serrato just lives and breathes that as part of his program, plus has embraced hundreds and hundreds of hours of self-learning and development to reinforce everything that he's doing. And I'm sure he's going to continue to do it to find ways to evolve and improve because, what we're doing, I can see it clear. I said it last year and I've been saying it all this year. Other teams are catching on and they'll do the exact same thing. And if you don't get ahead of the game, you get left behind. And we don't want to be left behind again. Gus brought Mickey Nassar from the Roosters. I'm sure he knows that Galvin may not work out as a big gamble. He's like, what the Abraham Les? Do you know where Mikey Nassar has been playing in our team? Like, you've just come out and, sorry, my friend, you've come out and created another fucking narrative based on a headline that we bought a Roosters halfback. Okay. Let's check this out. You got me fired up now, my friend. And it's really late and I should be going to bed real soon. Ron Massey Cup. We had a bye this weekend. We lost that game. We beat the Bulls. Yeah, pretty sure Mikey Nassar has been playing in Ron Massey Cup on the wing. Team lists. So I'm going to show you, just so you can see, my friend. Hopefully you're still here and you get to see this. Give me a little shout out if you do. Not to embarrass anyone or to, you know, this isn't to embarrass you, Abraham. It's just to set you straight, my friend, that you're creating another fucking narrative. There's Mikey Nasser. Now, he come in and he scored some tries and he's got some good footwork, and Latrell Fing played Jersey flag on the weekend, looked really good in our 30-all draw. But this is our Ron Massey side. They did pump it up with a few better sort of players. But he played on the wing, my friend, in Ron Massey, which is our fourth grade team. Okay? First grade New South Wales Cup Jersey flag, Ron Massey. They play against men. Got some good players here. Larry Mulgatuzia played there. Leighton Borg's been doing good in that ground. Toby Sullivan's got his brother, I think, played for the other side. Maybe that was another game. Ruggarevi Warwick, who was an Australian schoolboy from Papua New Guinea. He played fullback, he's played wing, he's played centre, he's played halfback. Mac Puafisi, his attack is phenomenal. Defensively, a lot of work to do. But that's why he's in Ron Massey, to keep his dream alive and to keep on working, to get an opportunity and keep his career going. And he's only young, okay? But Mikey Nassar from the Roosters, he come on the wing, scored a try, good talent. But Gus didn't buy him because he thinks Galvin's not going to work out at halfback, all right? You've just created a fucking narrative based on a headline you saw from Fox saying that this kid was that we just stole another halfback from the Roosters. Roosters aren't letting him go if they want to keep him for a start. We've just got a kid that we think's got some talent, and we've given an opportunity to him. And he's got looks like he's got a fair bit of flexibility in his game. He might play halves. He's fast. He's a competitor. He's not that big, and he's a bit of a goer. But he wasn't brought to this club because Gus thinks that his $650,000 fucking or $700,000 investment is going to fail 4 weeks after he buys it on a 3-year deal. Okay? So whoever you're having that conversation with, hopefully you're man enough to take what I've just brought there and to fucking change that narrative, brother. All right? And I hope you can appreciate my tone isn't derogatory or disrespectful. I take this club seriously, and I take narratives fucking seriously because they destabilise and disrupt more so than any signing does. And I want our administration that's got us trending everywhere in the right direction, right? And forget about how our pathways are playing this year. Yeah, there's some of the results have been poor. There's been lots of fade outs. But guess what? They're developing individuals with specific tasks in hand to develop those players for their careers and to make sure they're ready to fulfill a role in NRL, which is what it's all about. And eventually it'll take care of itself. But New South Wales Cup to flag, back to Massey, there's generally 7 to 8 changes to every one of those sides every week so far this year. And it's very hard to win games of rugby league when that's happening. Very, very hard. But they're expected to go out there and represent the jersey well. They all want to win. They're all doing their best. And sometimes they're coming up short. Sometimes the cohesion's not there. Defence just falls apart, whatever it is. Really poor discipline from some individuals at different times. And it costs you points, costs you wins. But when you see how easy they score points, in some parts of their game, how easily they handle defences, you know that they've got it in their game to be able to do these things, and they've got the right fundamentals and foundations to get it right. And I can tell you now, they're going to keep fighting to win as many games as they can as we roll in towards the end of the season and hopefully qualify for finals. But that's getting harder and harder every week. But sorry if I went rogue on you there, bro, but Mickey Nassar has been playing wing for the Bulldogs in Ron Massey Cup. He wasn't bought because Cut School thinks his investment's a fucking failure, and he's now just going to throw the toy out the cot before it's even given a chance. Like, seriously, man, we don't need that. And most people would just laugh at that anyway, to be honest. An early mail as to who will ref the Cowboys vs Bulldogs game. Corresponding fixture last year was Jared Sutton. Don't know, man. I don't think it's his turn. I reckon we might get Wyatt Roy or someone, or Ashley Klein. Not sure. Could be Sutton. 100% with you, Mick. Ignore the Fox bullshit headline creation and clicks. Just focus on enjoying us. A loss is just emotion, and within 24 hours passes, and what should remain is cold, hard analysis. And that's it. But it doesn't, my friend. That's the problem. It's continued to rot through our groups and and all over social media. I'm there. It's toxic. It's hard. But I'm writing articles with facts, cold hard facts, and asking reasonable questions to push these other narratives out there. And look, the amount of people who don't normally talk up on social media but are there to get all the information and to see what comes through and sort of flick through when they want to find out something, like who's playing and what were people saying about the loss. Was I seeing the same things? All that sort of stuff. They've come out and they're thanking me. There's been people who've sat there and gone, look, I was one of the ones jumping on this give Lachlan Galvin bullshit, but I'm starting to rethink my actions. And that's all you can do, man. One by one, we just sit there and have conversations with people and say, hey, look, some of you, it's a fair thought to have. Okay, we're winning. We're coming on top. You know, I get it, Abraham. I understand we're on top. We bring this kid in, and then all of a sudden people are leaving the club, and the teams get changed around, and then we're losing a couple of games we should have won, and oh my God, it's all his fault. It's a self-serving narrative. Like, the media don't even have to really push it too hard, but the fact that they push it really makes it just go way more viral than it would have, and that's the truth. And I'm going to fucking fight the fuckers every inch of the fucking way. I mean, I feel like it's a good time for these losses. Going to come back bigger and better. Very much so. You see, you want these losses now, not in round 25 and 26 by the tune of 44-6. And I knew that wasn't going to hurt us too much. I really did. I don't think it negated their belief at all. I just think a few plays we had, we overplayed our hand, got a bit cocky even in that semi-final. They believe they were going to win that match. 100%. And that's half the battle, belief. And I love the belief you're showing there, my friend. Worried about that edge defensively all season. Yeah, it has been a problem. And I'm sure by the end of the year we'll have it being the thing that does well. And I've got a feeling, come finals time, like Penrith, I have no doubt they'll be going at our left edge. They'll be targeting kick out. They'll be targeting Burton. I've no doubt about it. Teams that play us twice will go the other way. Some will do, you'll get the feeling that they're going to do what they did last time, especially if they got a win over us. But I know how they work. I've watched it for years. People just think it's the same old, and it's never. There's always a season you got to get through over probably 2 to 3 stages, and then you got to get through that final series. Okay, Francis, it's wrong to blame Galvin for our losses. Feel bad for the kid. We lost because we let our guard down on both games. We certainly did. We stopped playing. We stopped playing the football that got us to where we were, and started thinking that it was all just going to happen, and took some shortcuts, threw some terrible passes. Now, those passes come off. Coach congratulates them, says, great to see that the players played footy and went away with the victory. So it's one of those things, you fire a shot, you miss, you fire it again. And look, don't get me wrong, this club wants halves that can fire 12 shots, and if they completely miss and bounce back and hit someone in the head. They cause damage to their own teammate. Costs us points because of their lack of execution. But knowing that they're going to keep firing those shots when at the right time when they need to be fired, that eventually they're going to start hitting it more often than they miss. And eventually it's going to pay off. If the people they've got doing it, they know they're made of the right stuff at the time that they're doing it. Obviously, it was not Galvin's fault for the loss against Broncos. The fault is on our forward pack. They did not do their job. I agree with that. Our forward pack struggled to match the Broncos' forward pack for the majority of the game. And that is disappointing. You know, we definitely did our job in the first 25, 30 minutes in the forward pack. But both teams were doing a job on each other. Like they were just as effective on our pack as we were on theirs. We were just much better at how we dealt with that. Whereas Adam Reynolds felt the pressure completely. Lots of them did. They made mistakes. The discipline was poor, and they gifted us that 18 points as much as we gifted them the 22 that they got. Jake Turpin was the best player for the first 15 minutes in the game, to be honest, and Josh Curran and Sam Hughes Preston very disappointing in the same game. I wouldn't say that they were all disappointing, my friend. I would say Josh Curran's drop balls was disappointing. I would say he struggled to get in the game. His runs were difficult for him. Nothing come easy. It was one of the toughest games he's played as a Bulldog. But he'll bounce back and he'll learn from it. Sam Hughes, he went all right. He needed that time. He was starting to get tired. But he got important minutes into him, man. And that's what matters because he's a big body. And if DSF's not there, we need Sam Hughes there to start the match. We really do. It helps to have that because the impact he takes out of the defense tackling him and the extra crunch he has in his tackles all reduces the energy of your opposition. And that's why they're there for. And when you got boys like that who can play for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes, you've got some real opportunity to do some damage. And it's quite funny. There's teams who do have that, and that they are struggling as well. What do you think of Mitch Wood's performance in New South Wales Cup? G'day, bro. Mako, welcome, bro. Glad you've turned up. What do you think of Mitch Wood's performance? I thought it was much better, actually, and I thought the whole team was better, even though we lost, and it was not as tough as an opposition as the Panthers were the week before. But we went in with a much more youthful squad again, and Mitchy Woods did a lot of things right. He was highly involved at the right times, scored a really good try. Some good choices with the ball. Some of his kicks were completely off, too long. They weren't. He wasn't giving away 7 tackle sets too often. I don't think he gave away any. But there was definitely a few kicks that needed to be better positioned and stuff like that. But that's all part of his journey. He's looking better in the contact. He's looking a lot stronger, a lot more physical in another preseason. He's going to compete with whoever's there next year. I'll tell you that now. That doesn't mean he's going to get the start, but I believe he will get his opportunity next year to play rugby league for the Bulldogs. And who knows, 2 or 3 injuries, he might be needed this year. So they've got him in New South Wales Cup, and he's just going to keep working at it, and his opportunity will come. Fans can't see the forest for the trees, focusing on games week to week, catastrophizing, and panicking because of 2 losses in a row. Not all losses are the same. Zoom out, take a large snapshot. There you go, brother. I love the way you put your words. The best supporter on Twitter by far. And this fella's becoming one of the best supporters of the Bulldogs as well. G'day, mate. Looking forward to the end of the Origin disruptions. We start the build up to the finals. Last month has been testing combinations and giving a few players a run. A lot of side look well below their best during this period. They do, and that's what I've said. The amount of $4 and $5 fucking head-to-head winners has been remarkable. And, who was backing the Dolphins to beat us by 44 points to 8? I know that involved us, but there was been so many upsets and so many comebacks. It's been the story of the season, the comebacks. Like, I think the team knows that Galvin is the X factor. Freedom to attack and explore, which will take some tweaking, and we saw the negative, but we have to see the positive, just to balance. Very well said, my brother. G'day, James. Pardon the cliche, but whatever doesn't kill us only makes us stronger. Dead, don't kill me. There you go. I 100% agree. I mean, Broncos didn't win, but that by being dominant, our errors killed us. Our errors did kill us, but I felt they defended better than us the whole game, and they did. It was just, if we just held the ball and kept grinding away, Brisbane won't get that momentum. No, they don't. And look, and I reckon we might score another try or two. And they've shown if you keep grinding with Broncos, whether they're in front or behind, they can't deal with it. But if you start thinking you got the game won and start handing them the ball, and they've got the fucking talent. As I said, they've got some of the worst possession stats in the comp, yet are leading the line breaks and stuff. That comes from talent and raw fucking ability. And anyone who thinks that, just because they haven't won as many games as they should have and whatever else, and they're full of prima donnas and they paint their nails and whatever else, that they're easy beats, and they should have been easy beats. Yeah, we definitely should have. We should have won that match. We could have won that match, but we didn't. We fucking lost it. Biggest question mark for me is what happens when we get everyone back? Does Galvin stay on the bench? Does Sexton get dropped? What do you think happens? I think Galvin will spend some time at 19th man or 18th man. I think he'll play a couple of games in Cup. I honestly believe that. I could be wrong. I think he will. It'll depend if there's no injuries. So no injuries, and you got Salmon back and all that sort of stuff. The team you're going to be left with is one that probably doesn't have Galvin in it. You got Salmon starting, Man back on the bench, Hayward carried as our extra 17, number 17. You got Curran and Tupanua as our players on the bench, and our starters are King and Daniel Saluka Fafita or Sam Hughes. So Hayes is missing out. Saluka Fafita or Hughes is missing out, one of those two. And Galvin's most likely missing out. They're not going to drop Sexton when he's been the better, the more stable the player in the team. If it comes to the point though where Galvin's influence and he starts to hit the mark, and the combinations start to work, and we start to fire, and we start to put together 80-minute performances through him being part of that, well, then he poses the question. But our coaches aren't stupid. They're not just going to play him because they think he deserves it or he's the future. There's too much to lose. It's going to come down to who they think is going to be the best option for us. And they're not going to carry both when we've got everyone in range. They're just not. Jamin Salmon is a key to us defending our line defense is better with him there. Our early defense is better. Kurt Mann's injection off the bench and that energy just brings so much. So Tilly Tupanua, we saw at the start of that season what he could do through the middle and running lines through the middle or just off the edge, between the middle of the edge, one-off passes from halves, scoring tries after we ground teams into submission, which we're going to do again. And then you got Josh Curran because he's just going to work his ass off. And when Curran's got all that support from King and all these other players there, he's able to use a bit of his leg speed, get behind the line, play a bit more football, run a bit more direct and a bit harder. As I said, one player can make another player in your team twice as effective. You take one player out of a team, it can really have an effect. Sometimes you got to take, when you're out of form, sometimes you got to take a good player out of your team or have that enforced on you for the rest of your team to actually focus and do their jobs properly, where they all come together and play better. I've seen that with the Knights with Ponga missing numerous times, where they stop relying on him for their attack and start to focus on just grinding, doing what they got to do and scrap some wins and get their season back on track. He can then come in and they go on a bit of a run and make the finals, which is what they've done 3 out of 4 seasons. It's been a similar pattern. G'day, Timmy. I'm 100% behind the club and believe we will learn from the mistakes we've made. I will say the Cowboys are going to be a desperate side come this weekend. They are, and that's the other thing we face right now is desperation. Desperation for finals. And teams generally put up a pretty good fight. And the luxury we don't have, which is part of the panic from a lot of fans, is a lot of the teams that we're playing are going to be in the mix. Right? We know they're going to be in the finals. And it will bring on a high level of football for most sides. For some of those sides, though, it could be a game where they go, look, we can lose this game. You know, like where they might have a player who they need to play, but he might be a little bit carrying an injury. If it was a semi, he'd play, but losing the 2 points might not matter as much, you know. They might not play him. Stuff like that, okay? But when you're playing all those teams that we play at the start of the season, they're on the fringe of the 8. Beating them's really hard when you got all these sides where their season's on the line every time you play them. And that was us last year, and we won most of those games, to be honest, which gave me a lot of confidence for what we could do. So no one has explained the sudden 180 turnaround in form in the last quarter of the Broncos match. No one's explained it. I've explained it to you, brother. It's called mindset. And it wasn't the last quarter. It's been the last quarter since against Parramatta. Our mindset went from we've been grinding all game, keeping the ball in play, winning possession, to then let's go and put the nail in their coffin. And we did it. Since then, the boys have thought that that's what was going to happen the next 3 matches. We did it early against South. They had no answer to our whole game, really. They looked devoid of ideas again. Lightning strikes. It hurts. It hurt our momentum, and we went away from what worked. Our discipline was bad. They got piggybacked up the field, and we handed them a close game. Penrith, 55 minutes. We're grinding. We're in front. They bring in Galvin, and we go, instead of grinding, we started to try and sort of put that, thinking we're gonna run over the top of them, and it didn't work out, and we ended up costing us big time. It actually cost us about 15 minutes of trying to get out of our own end and get back into the grind and earn it back again. And we managed to do that and give ourselves about 5 minutes to have a chance to beat them. And we kept fighting to the end and asked a lot of questions, and their desperation won it out for them. The Broncos, our defence put them under a lot of pressure. Their defence was keeping us pretty much at bay. We got a good try to start the game off the scrum. Outside of that, we were asking questions, but we started making mistakes, but kept in the grind. They really struggled. They made mistakes. They handed us the football. Broncos love a stop-start match. We like to keep ball in play. Okay. Yes, the last quarter of that match. What was that? That would be the previous 15 to 30 minutes. So from about the 25th minute mark until the 60th minute mark, our possession, we made 13 errors in that period. We'd made about 8 or 9 in that period, and then made another 3 or 4 in the last 20. Okay. So it was all those errors over that period which handed them momentum, handed them possession, handed them field position, made us have to do a lot more work in defence, and put us under the pump, and we crumbled. That's what happened. That's what happened. Not one player's fault. Whole team's mindset, which had been similar for the last previous 4 weeks of thinking that it was all going to go the same way it did against Para. And that was us running over the top of teams. And there's been other examples of it as well, where we've run over the top of the Knights, over the Rabbits, and kept them to nil. Sorry about that, brother. I deleted that, but for some reason the comment stayed. It's okay, brother. Don't worry, my friend. Gave me something to. There's other people who might come up with something like that, bro. Okay, don't worry about it. And it gave me an opportunity to sort of nail that narrative on the head with some facts. Oh, fellow Dave, didn't see it live. Was on. Sorry, brother. You can watch the replay, my friend. Blind Freddy can see what is wrong. We make the same mistakes, especially the last 2 weeks. Errors in defence. No need to name names, but use a firm but fair approach. 100%, bro. It's better to peak at the back end of the season than now, which the Panthers have been doing for the past few years. 100%. They've just been good enough and had the depth and belief in their system to be able to win a lot of these games that other teams lose. And let's be frank, we've only lost 4 games. And the last 2, we've lost by a combined total of 6 points against the 2023 premiers and runners-up. Really want to beat Manly. Been wanting to verse them ever since that loss. Yeah, we'll see. We're going to wear our new jersey that night. We're going to play at Allianz Stadium, and it's going to be a big, they're going to go out there and perform. There'll be a big stuff with 1995 grand final and all that sort of stuff. That's what it's all about, that 30-year anniversary. And they're going to go out there and do us proud. We have some tough games coming up against sides that will be desperate to win, but we'll be too strong defensively, and we'll get much-needed wins. G'day, D. Welcome, brother. Glad to see you, my friend. I think we can underestimate how much the Panthers game took out of us. Very good point. Very, very good point. And I did mention this in the preview, the flat effector, that the second up syndrome. You have a good fresh run against that team. We're fresh off the bye. We're primed to go. We put it all on the line and come up short. And we were flat the next week. And we were. There's no doubt. Whilst we had them under pressure in our defensive patterns earlier in the game, we weren't as comprehensive with it. And they crumbled, but then we crumbled. 4 of our biggest leaders out of any one of those leaders might have been the difference to stopping their momentum. I agree, my friend. Macca, Egan Butcher knocked himself into another suburb today, stumbled, game stopped, often returned via pass. HIA. Funnily enough, same thing happened to Piakura. Same cannot be said for DSF. Yeah, that's disgraceful, man. I can't believe it. And I said this the other night or yesterday. Piakura, his eyes were rolling in the back of his head for about 5 seconds. DSF was coherent, made 2 tackles straight away. They didn't even stop the game. And he just played on, went bang, bang, and then he got called off. And as a cat one, fucking hell, is all I've got to say. They sit there and commentate this narrative all year and destroy complete rounds and, send 3 of our players to the sin bin for incidental contact. And what are we seeing here? Players getting fucking knocked to kingdom come and allowed to play on. No, there's interference there. Oh, welcome, Doggy71. Thanks for joining the channel, my friend. Really appreciate it. And if anyone else wants to join and pay me money, feel free to do it. And once again, thanks again, Tommy, for your super sticker. Much appreciated, mate. It really encourages me to come on and talk on a Sunday night. Here's a stat for you, Mick. Every game that we've played that starts the round, we have lost. Well, we don't start the round this week, but what a good stat, my friend. So whether it's Thursday night to start the round or Friday night to start the round, we have lost those matches. Fuck. Wow, what a stat. He's the man. 3 Thursdays and last Friday being the first game of the round. Don't break the fence. First 40 versus Panthers should be a blueprint for how we should be grinding and playing to the strengths of the players we have. 100%, man. Well said. John Michael, my cousin told me that Dogs are planning on bringing El Masri out of retirement. Welcome, John. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Timmy Gray, I thought Anaylis was solid in his debut game for the club. Do you think he will start on the wing or in the centres for the clash against the Cowboys? No idea at the moment. I was going to have an early look into that, Timmy, but we'll do it on Tuesday. We'll see the team Tuesdays. I'm not going to do a big early prediction. It all depends. If Carraz is playing, and Ari Tawala's not playing, put it that way. If Carraz plays and Stephen Crichton's rested, and Ari Tawala will play on the wing and Jacob Carraz will play in the centres. That is what I believe will happen. I hope we knock out the Broncos in the finals. That'll be enough to satisfy me this year. Well, I hope they don't even make it, but there's a good chance they will. Last time Broncos held Bulldogs the same score twice in the season. They met in this grand final, 42-18 and 22-18 in 1988. It was 2012 and 40-12. And then they beat us. G'day, champion, and thanks for joining the channel, mate. What's happening with Cassius Tia? He had a good game at centres on the weekend. He played in the halves in Flegg the week before. Running the ball really hard. Playing like someone who's switched on and wants to do well. I felt it's been sort of floating in and out of games leading up to that, but yeah, I felt he did pretty well, and he's a running threat. He's getting better with the contact. He looks like someone who's going to progress to NRL and handle it, and he still has that that swagger. The next Thursday game is against the Panthers. Oh, well, it's a good time to destroy that stat, my friend Michael. We love his stats, Abraham. What was the independent doctors watching when DSF got taken off against the Panthers? They must have been watching cartoons. I 100% agree, my friend. Look, guys, thank you for joining. I've got to get to bed. I've got an early start tomorrow. It's my missus' birthday tomorrow, so need to be focused and connected because I haven't been today. My head's been in the Bulldogs all day, and it's time for me to get some shut eye and be a better father and partner. Oh yes, they're opening its round 2 against the Tigers. Can't wait to watch. Oh, it's only 5 losses this year. Thanks, Michael. I'll say hello. Good game, mate. Go the Doggies. And bloody oath, my friend. Yeah, anyone wants to join the channel, please do. Anyone hasn't subscribed, please do. Make sure you like it and all that sort of stuff. I used to apologise for saying that, but nah, fuck it. Thank you, Timmy. Thank you, Macca. And thank you, everyone who's taken part. Thank you, Abraham, Sayed, Tommy, Ron B, Marty, Sam, and everybody else. Much appreciated. I'm going to head off. and I'll talk to you all soon. And I'll see you on Tuesday night. Go the Dogs.